Hello and welcome to ABP Live. I have with me today Australian High Commissioner to India, Mr. Philip Green, and we're going to talk to him about the fact that how we are seeing an increasingly volatile world within which India and Australia's partnership is getting strategically more deeper, and how that's going to shape and define going forward not just the relationship between India and Australia, but also how they can contribute towards larger peace in the world. Welcome to ABP Live, High Commissioner. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, Naima. It's lovely to be with you.
Thank you. High Commissioner, we are talking at a point when we are seeing there are multiple tensions going on, yet India-Australia ties are really getting deeper strategically. There are like two wars going on, Russia-Ukraine, that's going to complete 2 years now, Israel-Hamas, and then the Red Sea tensions, which is also impacting India in a larger way. We are seeing the steps Indian Navy has taken by deploying warships. How do you see this volatility, and how do you think India and Australia can or need to come more closer?
Well, you're right that we're dealing with a moment in world's history which is particularly grave. We are seeing, as you say, more conflict around the world. We're seeing increased military build-up without composite mechanisms to manage that build-up. We're seeing the increased use of force by non-state actors as well as state actors. And we are seeing the norms and laws of the world, of the way in which we operate in the world, being stretched and pressured in ways that we haven't seen for many decades. I think you are right to put that in the frame of the bilateral between Australia and India. That is, of course, at a new and very high level that we've never known before. And I think that is in part because we live in a more complex, contested and dangerous world. And we both need better partnerships and deeper friendships with those whom we trust and those with whom we have similar outlooks. And for Australia, India is on a very short list of those countries that we want to deepen, and we feel it's important as we face more tension in our region.
Now, coming to the Red Sea tensions, there have been, a round of attacks that US and UK have been doing on Houthi targets. I know Australia is also part of the larger joint statement that was signed. How do you see that tension? Is it going to escalate? India and Australia are also maritime partners. They are looking at greater maritime integration and domain awareness. How do you see that playing up both bilaterally and as Australia individually, how you're seeing the Red Sea tensions escalating?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball and I don't know what's going to happen, but I can tell you that both of our governments are making very powerful efforts to seek to manage those tensions. Your Foreign Secretary was in Iran just a week ago. My Foreign Minister has been around the states bordering Israel and Palestine in the last week as well. And her message on this issue has been to seek to close down escalation and ensure that this doesn't widen in a way that would be dangerous for all of us. But she's also had a very strong message in relation to Gaza and Palestine. The situation in Gaza is dire. And although Hamas attacks are to be completely decried, and the ending of Hamas must be sought, and we support Israel in that, the humanitarian interest of the people of Gaza must be held in that balance. That's terrifically important. So we have long supported humanitarian pauses, but we hope that those humanitarian pauses can lead to a sustainable ceasefire, and a ceasefire that is not unilateral. We would like a ceasefire that stops the Israeli attacks, but it must also stop Hamas's attacks and Hamas's terrorism. So we are focused on, as you talk about, the wider issues here, but we're also focused on the original cause of this, which we would like to bring to a sustainable ceasefire.
High Commissioner, also talking about India, Australia, deeper strategic ties. We recently had the 2+2 talks by the end of last year. There were a lot of discussion on maritime domain awareness, of course, Indo-Pacific. But going forward in the next, let's say, 4 or 5 years, how do you see that aspect deepening? What's
Well,
next?
well, can I first just say, Nainima, we're coming to the end of the second Modi term. And it's a time where we reflect and take stock of what we've achieved. I would have to say that this has been the golden period in Australia-India relations. This is now a country with which we have an annual leaders meeting, a 2+2 foreign and security meeting, and a free trade agreement. Now, there's only one other country on the planet with which we have those three things. In addition to that, we have an intimate relationship between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Albanese, which I've seen up close. We're at a really high level. The next few months will be dominated by the Indian election. And that's a period for me and my team to be ready for the next phase, because I want the next phase, the next government of India, to be one with which we can go even deeper. So whether that's maritime domain awareness, whether that's deeper integration between our armed services, where already we have very high levels of interaction in exercises and so on, whether that's the second phase of the free trade agreement, whether that's doing even more to deepen the bilateral links that we have in a human way. Now, nearly 1 million people of Indian origin living in Australia, but I'd like to see more direct air links, and I'd like to see more educational exchanges. There's a lot more that we can do.
It's interesting because I believe India and Australia are taking a lot of steps in the segment of education.
Correct.
Can you throw some light on that?
Well, look, we've had now a great history of Indian students coming to Australia, and that will go on. But people tell me that 20 million Indians turn 18 each year. And as your economy goes up the curve, it will be important that more of them get access to high quality training. Now, a lot come to Australia for training, and that will continue. But I don't think it should be a one-way street. I think there should be new opportunities for Indian students to get high quality Australian degrees here in India. And that's why I was delighted when I was at Vibrant Gujarat to participate in the inauguration of the first foreign branch campus in India from any country on earth. And that happened to be Deepen University from Australia. Now, what does that mean for an Indian family? It means that they have the option for their children to go to Australia to study. Great. They also now have the option to get a first-class Australian education right here in India, at a lower cost and without the effect on a family of people being a long way from each other. I think that's a great option. The Indian government, through its new education policy, has now allowed foreign branch campus to be opened not just in Gift City, but across the country. There's a very lively interest from Australian universities of taking advantage of that, and I think that can only be good for consumers of high quality education in India.
So not just Deakin University, there are others who would be also wanting to come to India?
So let's be clear. The University of Wollongong has already committed to opening a campus in Gift City, and that will happen later this year. I've looked at the building myself, which is under construction. That's going to be an important activity. And then this new wave, which might be in Gift City, but might be somewhere else. For instance, I know the University of Western Sydney is actively exploring options in Bangalore, and a consortium of Australian universities is looking at options in a range of other places. So there's a lively interest, and we'll be very keen to support Australian universities as they seek to make new investments here and make new opportunities available for consumers of Australian education.
High Commissioner, coming to bilateral trade, we've seen the first part of ECTA that's got signed, and already a lot of access has opened up in terms of market access for products of both countries to go in. What about the second part? You said elections will be coming. How do you see that shaping up?
Good question. So, first of all, the first phase, ECTA, is going very well. The utilisation rate of the free trade access is now at 77%. That's an extremely high level for free trade agreements. What's that meaning in practice? It's meaning that Indian products are able to enter Australia more cheaply and therefore more are flowing. So increases in exports of apparel, of clothing, up nearly 10%. Increases in exports of Indian agricultural goods to Australia, up 16%.
Okay.
That's great news for Indian exporters. It's great news for Australian consumers who are getting products at a cheaper rate than they otherwise would. We're happy with that, but we're not satisfied. We're very keen to conclude the second phase, which is called SECA. And what will that mean? That will mean better utilisation of Australian critical minerals in India's renewable energy trade, especially electric vehicles and batteries. It will mean better opportunities for us to provide agri-tech solutions that will help the hundreds of millions of Indian farmers who live off the land here. And that may provide more opportunities for us to move forward with that human bridge, to allow the human connections between our countries to go forward. A really good example is aviation links. There are not yet enough direct aviation links between Australia and India. And that's something that a free trade agreement can help to propel.
So last year, I know a parliamentary delegation was here from Australia to look at the market access for agricultural products. Do you think, post-elections, whichever government comes in, negotiating on the agriculture part will be difficult, or do you think it'll be easier? How do you see that shaping up?
Oh, look,
because that's been most contentious aspect.
I've been part of these free trade agreements negotiations,
Yes.
and there is often moments of tension. Although I have to say, between our negotiators, it's played out in a very genteel, polite, and courteous way. I like the way they go about their work. Look, agricultural access is important to us. We're a big agricultural exporting country, and we think that Indian consumers can benefit from more Australian agricultural goods at lower costs. But we understand that this is sensitive for India.
Yes.
And we have no desire to upset the lifestyles of important numbers of Indian people. And to the contrary, we actually think that this deal can be built in such a way that it supports the agriculture sector in India. We have a lot of agri-tech, and we are prepared to share that.
Right.
And we would like to find ways of making sure that this is a win-win for Australia and India in agriculture.
High Commissioner, also there was this talk about India, Australia. I mean, India importing more of critical rare earth mineral from Australia. That's one segment where I would really say China has taken the game over. Their imports of critical mineral earth from Australia, critical minerals, were at its highest in 2023. Do you think India needs to do more if it really wants to play in that segment?
We all need to do more. And there's a natural affinity here. India wants to do more in the renewable sector, and we want India to be successful in that. And we have a lot of the resources that are required for that. We're the largest exporter of lithium in the world.
Yes.
We're the second largest producer of cobalt in the world. We want to make sure that Indian firms and governments are part of that supply chain. That's why we're investing very hard in a partnership between our Critical Minerals Office and Kabil here. That's why when I speak to Indian industrialists, it's frequently about how they should get better access to Australian critical minerals. But we've got to be real about this. The demand for our critical minerals is high.
Yes.
Purchases in North America, purchases in North Asia, purchases in Europe, they're on the ground there, as are some Indians. So my message to Indian industry is, we're here to help. We want you to succeed, but you've got to be quick, and you've got to be assertive in the way in which you go about this.
Where do you see the problems lie? I mean, in India, there is a realization that we need this, rare earth minerals from Australia. But where do you think we are lagging behind?
I don't think India is lagging behind. I think that this phase is natural. We know a lot about the mining game. It won't be quick. Developing mines takes time. It takes a high level of trust. And of course, it takes resources. I'm confident that we will get there. But my message is that we all have to work harder and faster now at this moment. So when we come to the end of the next term of an Indian government, we can say, yes, we got that done.
Interesting. Now, High Commissioner, let me now also shift your focus towards the Quad.
Yep.
There was a Quad summit that was supposed to happen, but there had been several factors why it could not. India wanted to host it. How do you see Quad developing now with the world changing? The Quad really cannot have the same agenda, or if you think they can have the same agenda and work in it. My question is, since the world is undergoing a paradigm shift, I think the Quad also needs to review what it wants to do going forward to stay relevant.
Let me say a couple of things about that. So I'm relatively new in your country. And the last time I came here was in 2019 when I was working on the Quad affairs in Canberra from our headquarters. The Quad that we have now is unrecognisable from what there was then. At that time, we had an occasional meeting of senior officials, no programmed agenda or work program, and not even always a statement came out of those meetings. Now we have annual meetings by leaders. We have a defined work program with a series of verticals on which we are working week in, week out. And we have real runs on the ground. So when I think of all of the things that we have tried to do to make our region more safe, more prosperous, more stable, I think the Quad is one of the shining examples of success. You are right that we are dealing with a world with global challenges in multiple locations. For our country, still, the top priority is stability and peace in the Indo-Pacific. And against that ambition, India is an indispensable partner. So, Quad discussions may range onto a range of things, but my own view is that the focus will remain pretty squarely on the Indo-Pacific. We have a lot more to do, and for us, India is an indispensable partner in trying to achieve what we want to get to.
And what does Australia think about expanding the Quad, since now we see so many tensions happening at multiple levels? Do you think you need more partners within Quad?
I think we've got a great partnership. I think it's a natural grouping. Others will be interested in what we do, and we make sure we brief them so that everybody understands what we're trying to achieve and how we're going about it. At the moment, I feel very comfortable that the 4 countries that are working together are the right group. And frankly, we've got quite a lot to do. Those work programs need continuous effort. And so that is our focus, is to make sure that we deliver on our commitments.
Also, High Commissioner, how are you now facing the China challenge? I know when the Albanese government came in, you did a lot of outreach, and there have been discussions. You do a lot of trade with China, but then you've also said that they are a strategic competitor as well. Recently, when Australia congratulated the Taiwanese new president, China protested. How are you handling that situation with China vis-a-vis what's happening with India?
We're seeking to stabilize our bilateral relationship with China. And we have new levels of engagement. And stabilization is important, because I don't think any country in the world, far less one which lives in our region, wants an unstable relationship with China. We cooperate where we can. We disagree when we must. we act always in our national interest. And in operating in our national interest, we engage very deeply with our partners. And India is a key partner for us in the Indo-Pacific. So our relationship with China is stabilizing, though we see that there are still difficulties. You will have seen a couple of months ago Australian naval divers in the water subject to sonar attacks.
Right.
These sorts of unprofessional and dangerous conduct need to be called out. And that's what our government's done.
My last question to you, High Commissioner, again, coming to bilateral ties between India and Australia, which have been so deep. But then in the last year, we've seen certain security challenges as far as the Khalistan issue is concerned. There have been many statements going back and forth from India and Australia. Do you think that challenge is going to escalate, or you think that can be arrested within Australia and India will have no complaints as such?
Well, let me be clear about this. We are a migrant country. Nearly 50% of our country either comes from somewhere else or had one or both parents from somewhere else. We're used to communities coming to settle in Australia and there being some frictions between those communities. So we have developed, I think, pretty good processes to make sure that we understand the differences between communities. We perceive where there may be dissension, and we act to make sure that that doesn't get out of hand. So peaceful protest is a natural part of our democracy, and we allow it, but it must be peaceful. And we work very hard to make sure that the dignity of Indian diplomatic premises and the dignity of India's diplomatic personnel is well looked after. That's an effort in which we invest a lot as a government, and so far, I think we've done a pretty good job in making sure that that's under control.
And are you having that dialogue with the Indian government?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been through this with any number of my Indian colleagues, and I know the Indian High Commissioner in Australia has had very intimate engagement with Australian multicultural security, prime ministers, foreign affairs officials, to make sure that he can be as satisfied as we can make him, that we're taking all necessary steps to make sure that peaceful protest can go ahead, but that the premises and the people that India sends as its High Representative to Australia are respected.
Sure. Thank you so much. That was High Commissioner Philip Green, Australian High Commissioner to India, telling us how India-Australia bilateral ties will be shaping up in this volatile world and how India and Australia can come together and have the next phase of their deeply strategic relationship. For ABP Live, this is Nainima Basu. On camera, Ayan Hussain.